What's up folks, this is Pratt and I'm here with the next video. I love editing, y'all know that. I love editing. I've been editing for the past 6 years professionally, and for the past 19, 20, 21. For the past 14 years. I've been editing for the past 14 years. So within that time I've come across a few video editors that I personally love. So this is my list of my top 5 NLEs, non-linear editors that I've come across over the years. So I'm going to explain them, gonna give you the pros and the cons and break them all down for those of you who are aspiring to be video editors and get into the whole videography game. But before I do that, I'd like you to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit your bell notification so you know whenever I upload a video. It is important that you know whenever I upload, because how else you go know whenever I upload? So I'm going to get into my top 5 NLEs. So for those of you who smoke, grab something and smoke. For those of you who drink, grab something and drink. And for those of you who are just here to learn, grab your pen and paper. Let's go folks. So as I've said, we're talking about NLEs today. NLEs, non-linear editors. So what is a non-linear editor? A non-linear editor is basically a video software or a video program that allows you to composite multiple layers or create video projects with multiple layers or multiple, well yeah, basically that, multiple layers of video footage. So starting at number 5, we have a VideoPad video editor. Now I used VideoPad in 2014. I wasn't professionally editing at the time, but that's basically how I got into advanced video editing. Yeah, back in 2014 it was a LE, a linear editor. VideoPad apparently is a non-linear editor now. The last time I checked the website, it appears that they upgraded the software and you can now add multiple layers to VideoPad. For the pros, at the time it was easy to use. As a beginner, as a person who has never edited a video before, I could swear by VideoPad. You download the program, you install it, and it's somewhat intuitive. It's basic. Well, the version that I used was basic. It's more upgraded now. They have stabilization and all kind of stuff in there now. So it looks cool. I need to download it and try it. But as I said, it's easy to use. It's very intuitive. It's basically for the non-video editor. If you have never edited a video before and you'd like to get some practice with a somewhat formal or somewhat industry standard editor, then VideoPad is perfect for you. So there's a free version for download that is for unofficial use. It's only for home uses, right? What I've read so far. But if you want the full version, you can pay the whole $129 and get the full version, right? It's now $79. It's usually $129. Call it $130 US, right? But at this current moment it's going for $79. It must be some discount or some promotion or something like that. So it's a one-time fee of $129. You pay for the software and that's it, you're done. So VideoPad is available for Macs and it's available for PC. You can download it on a PC and you can download it on a Mac. Absolutely love that. Yeah, number 4 on the list is one of my personal favorite. I was professionally editing videos with this software. It's called Sony Vegas. So Sony no longer owns Vegas. It's just Vegas now. Yeah, Sony Vegas was basically like my step up from VideoPad. It's easy to use. It's somewhat technical. So when you start using it, if you're not familiar with the terms and stuff like that, it's easy to get lost, right? But then it had a gray layout, but since they wanted to look more modern, they're moving with the whole black background like all the other top editors, right? So when I was using Sony Vegas at the time, this was on a work computer. I had a work license. Basically it would get the job done. I'm not going to lie, Sony Vegas is not the best, or Vegas as they call it now is not, in my opinion, not the best editor. I've never heard about Vegas being used in a industry standard setting like in Hollywood or whatever. But I know a lot of people out there got started or probably are still using Vegas, right? So for the pros as far as Vegas goes, the key commands are easy to use. For example, well, when I was using it, if you wanted to cut a clip, it's as easy as pressing S. The commands are easy to learn. Getting a transition is as easy as just putting two clips or just forcing the two clips together, and then you get like a little transition going on there. You had an array of transitions, right? But in my opinion, they looked old, they looked boring. It wasn't very interesting compared to what the other softwares could do. So that's basically why I left Vegas. But in terms of learning the fundamentals of video editing, like advanced video editing, Vegas is basically the program to get you to learn the fundamentals of video editing. So cropping, chroma keying, green screen, stuff like that. Yeah. For the cons of Vegas now, whenever I was using Vegas, it would take forever to render out a project. Regardless of the system specs, I don't know if it was some setting or something I wasn't doing right, or maybe I wasn't adjusting something, but when I had a low spec PC, it was moving slow, and when I upgraded to a high spec PC, it was still moving slow, which was another reason why I left Sony Vegas. In addition to that, the software would crash sometimes, so you'd be working on a project, it would crash. You reload the software and all your progress, everything you work on would basically be gone. So I couldn't stand that. So that was another problem I had with Vegas. Some of the times I would be working on a wedding, and then close to delivery time when I'm trying to render, I'd be rendering out the one file about 4 or 5 times before it would complete, and like basically keep my fingers crossed that it wouldn't crash or some foolishness over, because I had to leave it overnight sometime, and I was just hoping it wouldn't crash, right? Another con with Vegas is that it's only available for Windows, it's not available for Mac. So if you are using a MacBook or a Mac desktop or any of those things, anything Apple wise, you won't be able to use Vegas, right? So yeah, you can pay a one-time fee of $266, you get a new license, or you can get an annual subscription for $19.99, which is roughly $20, and for the monthly subscription it's $34.99. To me, that's a con. Still, I don't like the whole subscription model thing. I like to pay for my software, and then I have the software and use it for however long as I want, right? But you know, everybody's doing subscription now. For number 3 on the list, I personally love this software. I've never used it. That's a strange thing. I love the software, but I've never used it. I've tried to learn it once or twice, but I've never fully gotten into it. But I know what it can do. We're talking about Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve here. Now, DaVinci Resolve was a software I was very interested in back in 2016, 2017, because at the time I was struggling with Vegas and I was trying to find like a step up from Vegas. When I heard about DaVinci Resolve, it was like, this was supposed to be the software that would end all of my problems, right? So the pros for Resolve. Resolve is a industry standard software. It is used in Hollywood. So anybody that wants to use a software that is used in Hollywood, then DaVinci Resolve is the program. It has brilliant color grading. The color grading ability is legendary. Everybody speaks about the color grading from DaVinci Resolve. The layout is very clean. You install Resolve from the installation process to the introduction and everything. It's clean, it feels very professional. On top of that, Blackmagic also sells a line of accessories or several accessories that would pair with the software flawlessly. So if you're like a professional like movie making or TV setting kind of editor, then you would have access to all these equipment and such and such and such, right? For the cons, it's not easy to learn. Not that easy to learn. The shortcut keys, in my opinion, are not that easy to learn either. The plugin system, as far as I've seen, is not that similar to Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. It uses like a node system. So if you want to add texts, if you want to add effects or stuff like that, you basically have to like manipulate some nodes, work around the nodes and add them. And the last time I used nodes was in Toon Boom when I was learning animation, and from then I haven't used nodes, you know, in anything. So the node system is not really my thing. So I wouldn't say it's easy to get into, but if you know how to use Resolve, then I'm thinking you will make some awesome projects. DaVinci Resolve is absolutely brilliant. I don't use it, but I know what it can do. To me, it's right here to Final Cut Pro. In terms of availability, DaVinci Resolve is available on both Macs, so it's available on Apple. I think it's even available on Linux systems, so I think it's available for Ubuntu as well, and it's available for Windows. So if you're on any one of those 3 operating systems, you should be able to use a copy of DaVinci Resolve. Now, if you want to experiment with DaVinci Resolve, there's a free version on the website that you can always download and try out and experiment and figure out how this thing works. Still haven't figured it out because it's not that intuitive to me, but if you want to learn it, there is a free version that you can download. In a professional setting, if you want to buy the software, it's currently $295 US. Next on the list is the big bad one. Everybody know about this one. This is like one of the trendsetters, the industry standard video editor. And we're talking about the big bad Adobe Premiere. Now, if you are already into videography, if you're already into video editing, more than likely you've heard about Adobe Premiere before. As far as the pros for Adobe Premiere goes, I like the software because it's like an industry standard software. So if you have an idea how Premiere works, more than likely if you should apply for a job in the editing arena or whatever it is, more than likely you're gonna be using, or they'll be giving you a machine that uses Adobe Premiere. Most studios, most big companies, most production companies, they use the Adobe suite, the whole Adobe suite of software, because you can basically integrate one project into the other very easily. So if you are doing something in Adobe Photoshop and you want to incorporate that into, let's say, an After Effects or an Adobe Premiere, then that is extremely relatively easy. There's a lot of graphics in there, a lot of new effects. There's a lot of things that you can also download from the Creative Cloud store. And there are a lot of plugins out there, like a lot of third-party plugins for Adobe Premiere as well. So if you're not satisfied with what Adobe is giving you, then you can always go on like a website like Motion Array or Envato or whatever it is, download new effects, download new plugins and install them into the software. You're good for go. See, in terms of like highly detailed workflows, like if you're doing something that requires a lot of processing power or a lot of, just a lot of processing power, something that can manage all your files, your 4K files or your 8K files or whatever, then Adobe Premiere is definitely for you. Blackmagic and the rest of them will do that as well, you know. But as I said, Adobe Premiere is like a industry standard kind of thing. Like right across the board you'll find Adobe Premiere. In terms of cons, the one thing I don't like with Premiere or Adobe products in general is that you have to pay like a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. Now I'm the kind of person that I like to just pay one money for the license of my software and just do road with it. You know, like if you pay over and over and over on a monthly basis. No, I don't like that. Another con with Adobe Premiere is that it requires a lot of system specs, a lot of system memory. So you won't be running Premiere Pro on like a 4GB system. You need at least, I would say at least 8 gigs. At least 8 gigs with some form of dedicated GPU or something like that. Something dedicated to processing graphics, because this thing takes up a lot of system resources. Apart from the whole pricing situation and apart from the layout, it's a bit granular. There are way more functions in there to get what you want done. So if you want to, for example, add an effect, you have to click on the effects tab, find the effect that you want, drag it on there, such and such and such. So that particular aspect of it, I think, takes up a lot of time. So that's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Premiere. But if you want to do anything serious, like serious workflow, and you can afford the yearly license, then go for it. Adobe Premiere is definitely one of the best video editing programs out there right now. So it's available for Windows, it's available for Mac, I think it's also available for Linux systems, and I think they have the app as well. You can find it on several systems. So Adobe Premiere definitely clocking in at number 2, right? And for number 1 of my personal favorite video editor, like Once I discovered this software, like there's absolutely no turning back. The layout, the look, the usability, the UI, everything. I have to give number one to Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro 10 or Final Cut Pro X. I've been using Final Cut Pro since 2020. I got Final Cut Pro in 2020 and trust me, it's different. It's super light, first and foremost, it's super light. So it's not as granular as Adobe Premiere. Like if you want to find the effects section is right there. You just click on something, it's right there. All your graphics are right there, everything right there. Easy to find. It has the same, almost like a similar layout to DaVinci Resolve, but I think it's just simpler and more intuitive. You can pick up Final Cut Pro and just jump straight in and start to use it. As far as the plugins library go, it has one of the, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest plugin library out there, both free and paid, because you can browse around and find some free plugins for it. The plugins are easy to install as well. It's not as difficult as the Adobe Premiere plugins. For me, it's all pros. There's only one con I have with Final Cut Pro, and that it's only available for Mac. You can't get it anywhere else. If you have a Linux system, God go with you. You have Windows, God go with you. It's only available for Mac, and that might be a drawback for some people because they won't necessarily have the money to just buy a MacBook up front just like that. I mean, these things are expensive. You know, as a starting videographer, you know, your budget kind of have to rotate between camera and memory cards and tripods and stabilizers, and you know, you still have to have some form of processing power. So some people will kind of go the budget oriented way of building a desktop or like buying like a gaming laptop or something like that, but not necessarily a MacBook. So that might be the only drawback. It's not an easy ecosystem to get into, but once you start using Final Cut Pro, I guarantee you probably don't want to go back. Yeah, it's basically sold on the App Store for about $299.99 USD, so roughly $300. As I said, everything else is a pro. It's the layout, the availability of plugins, how easy they are to install. I like Final Cut Pro because it's more optimized for the MacBook. It's more optimized for its operating system. On my MacBook, I have about like 8 gigs of RAM. And I have a dual core processor. Now, if I should translate this to like Windows terms, Premiere Pro would be struggling on that. Premiere Pro still struggles to open on my laptop, right? And it's a 8 gig dual core i5 system. A Final Cut Pro and an 8 gigabyte laptop, 8 gigabytes of RAM, dual core laptop. You can't even process 4K files on that. It just work, right? So my personal favorite, my number one is definitely, hands down, Final Cut Pro. Also, you can integrate your projects. So for anybody that uses Motion is also like a Apple-based software. Motion is really for doing composite work like you would do in After Effects. So it's basically the Apple equivalent to After Effects. But you can basically pull your work or transport your work from Motion into Final Cut Pro and, you know, continue the seamless workflow from there. So it's very good, very, very good. So Final Cut definitely gets number one for me on this list. So honorable mention, I have 2 honorable mentions. The first one is VideoLeap. This is a mobile editor, so it's available for iPhones and Android phones. It's pretty good, it's very good. At the time when I got it, this was a few years back, it was only available for Apple devices, so you could only get it on iPhones. But now I'm seeing where it's available for both Apple and Google devices, so jump right in. I'm going to leave a link to a video that I edited with VideoLeap, but it was for a mobile editor. Trust me, it got the job done. It was easy to use. It had quite a selection of effects, and I think you could also download some like in-app purchases as well. You could get some more, but yeah, it was decent. I don't know if I do the editors justice by saying that they were decent, because I found the ones that I have used, they were very good for what I wanted to do. But VideoLeap had a lot of effects in there, you could do a whole heap with it. Basically, you had a lot of transitions, a lot of effects, a lot of text effects, stuff like that, right? So VideoLeap is definitely an honorable mention. Also, Windows Movie Maker. I cannot leave out Windows Movie Maker. That was like the program that I got started editing videos. the whole video editing saga of my life started with Windows Movie Maker. So Windows Movie Maker is definitely an honorable mention. Windows Movie Maker was really available on Windows Vista. I'm not sure if it was available on Windows 7, but I haven't seen it on Windows 8, 10 or 11. They now have this new program called ClipChamp. I've seen it, I haven't downloaded it, but from what I've read so far, it doesn't sound so interesting. But the real OG Windows editing, well, we can't call it OG because I wasn't really using Windows before XP now, was I? But the real OG one that I came across, Windows Movie Maker. Anybody that wanted to do any form of video editing back in the day and you had like a Windows laptop, that was the shit. But yeah, that's basically my list of my top 5 favorite non-linear editors. So feel free to check them out. I'm going to leave the link in the description, and if you are a aspiring videographer, then I would recommend Adobe Premiere, Blackmagic Adobe Premiere, and if you have a MacBook, Final Cut Pro. Right, can't go wrong with those, especially with Adobe Premiere. I mean, it's not my number one, but it's like everywhere, everywhere. So yeah, get a feel for that one. All right, but anyway, people, you know the usual. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it, and click on the subscribe button, click on the bell notification so you'll know whenever I post a video, and I will definitely see you folks in the next one. Peace.